Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Foreclosure Help 777, where we talk about everything foreclosure related. And today's topic is something a lot of people are interested in, and that's the servicing shell game. So let's talk about that. Okay, so the servicer shell game and what's really happening here. And just to give you an idea, with my house, when I was in foreclosure in 2007, Countrywide Home Loans was my lender, if you know what I'm saying. And then it went to Bank of America because Countrywide acquired it. And then Green Tree Servicing next. And then Ditech. And then Ocwen. And then PHH, New Res Shellpoint. And so you got to wonder, why your servicer changes that many times and what it really means. Because a lot of people do get confused about who they're really supposed to pay every month if their lender changes that many times, and if it's even lawful, if they even have authority. So let's talk about all this. Okay, the chain is not ownership changing, it's servicing being sold, reassigned, or rebranded, often repeatedly. So this is where the confusion is, okay? Servicing ownership. This is the first misunderstanding. A servicer collects payments, sends statements, manages escrow, and communicates with borrowers. A servicer does not automatically own the loan, hold the note, have authority to foreclose, have authority to modify the loan. A servicer does not, let's say this again, it does not automatically have authority to modify the loan. That's pretty big, because a lot of times they say they can. Servicing rights are a business contract, not a property right. Why servicing changes so often? Servicing is bought and sold in bulk, transferred during bankruptcies, shifted after enforcement actions, and reassigned to avoid regulatory penalties. Many of the names that I talked about above were fined and sanctioned, exited servicing, went bankrupt, or sold portfolios under distress. This churn has nothing to do with borrowers. It's internal risk management. The shell game effects on borrowers. Each time servicing changes, records get lost, payment histories break, suspense balances reset, authority documentation does not transfer cleanly. Yet borrowers are told, nothing has changed. This is factually untrue. The legal problem in the shell game creates. Okay, every servicer must be able to answer 3 questions. Who owns the loan? Who holds the note? What authority do we have? And from whom? In many cases, no servicer in the chain can answer all 3. Instead, they rely on prior servicer data, MERS registry entries, boilerplate declarations, assumptions instead of proof. Servicing transfers often move responsibly, not authority. So, why borrowers are rightfully confused? From the borrower's perspective, the payee changes repeatedly. Ownership is never clearly disclosed. Trustee disclaim knowledge. Servicers deflect questions. I wrote a letter to Bank of New York Mellon asking them if they really own my loan, and they sent me back a letter telling me they did not own my loan. So what is up with that? And meantime, Bank of America said that Bank of New York Mellon was the note holder. And they point fingers at each other. This happens a lot more than you believe. And this also creates reasonable doubt as to who is entitled to payment, whether payments will be credited, whether trial mods are even authorized. Courts recognize this confusion even if they don't always resolve it as well. How the shell game intersects with tender. Tender is making payments, guys. Tender assumes a known creditor, a valid lien, and clear authority. But the shell game produces an unknown creditor, a disputed lien, and shifting authority. Tender doctrine collapses when no one can identify a lawful payee. Why courts are skeptical of servicer declarations. This is why courts increasingly scrutinize. I am a servicer employee affidavits, generic business records, or boarding declarations, because the declarant often has no personal knowledge. Records were created by prior entities, and authority is assumed, not proven. This is not a theory. Courts say this explicitly in certain cases like Veal or Bellastri. What the shell game is not. It is not evidence of a secret trust or proof of fraud by itself or grounds to avoid court, a reason to stop paying automatically. No, the distinction is important for credibility. What the shell game does not legally support, it supports demanding proof of authority, challenging standing, opposing tender requirements, contesting loan mod authority, questioning payment application, quiet title, and declaratory relief claims. Servicing chaos creates legal questions, not automatic defenses. The servicer shell game, why loan servicing transfers create legal chaos and why it matters. I started with one lender, but over the years, my loan bounced from servicer to servicer. Payments got misapplied, records disappeared. Nobody could tell me who owned my loan. I hear this a lot from people. This is not just some random thing, it happens a lot. That experience is not random, it's systemic. What a servicer is and is not. And again, we're going to go with this again. They collect payments, manage escrow, send statements, and communicate with borrowers. And servicer does not automatically own the loan, hold the note, have authority to foreclose, or have authority to modify the loan. That's something important. And why do they do this? Why do they change so often? Again, these are some other reasons. Servicing portfolios are bought and sold. Companies exit after enforcement actions. And bankruptcy, risky loans are offloaded. Regulators push problems loans elsewhere. I think Selene Finance is one of them that takes a lot of defaulted debt and tries to collect on it. What breaks every time servicing changes, each transfer risk, losing, payment histories, again, all this stuff we already went over. Okay, so the shell game cases, MERS doesn't fix this. MERS is a registry, not a title system. MERS entries are not proof of ownership. Courts do not treat MERS as dispositive evidence. So MERS records claims does not resolve them. How the shell game undermines authority. Okay, because authority must flow from the owner, be delegated, be provable. But servicers often rely on assumptions, prior servicing data, and boilerplate affidavits. Authority does not automatically survive a servicing transfer. How this ties directly to the tender assumptions. Okay, again, you don't want to assume, you want to know. Okay, so the loan modifications, the trial loan modifications, for instance. Contracts require authority. Servicers often lack power to bind investors. So trial payments to an unauthorized servicer do not create authority. Okay, so let's look at what we can do. If your servicer has changed and you got one of those letters saying, "Hi, I'm your new servicer, you got to send all your payments to me," then you need to send a specific letter to that servicer, and let's go over that real quick. Okay, this is just a template, and you guys could probably make one very much the same. I'll put it on my foreclosure page on Facebook. If you want to go to the files section, you'll find it there, and so you can look at it. Anyway, it's a qualified written request, notice of error, and it's going to be sent certified mail, and we're going to use ShellPoint mortgage servicing or new res because it seems to be the way the shell game is being played. We'll use them as an example. Introduction, I'm writing pursuant to RESPA and Regulation X, sending this qualified written request for information, and this request arises from repeated servicing transfers of my loan which have created material confusion regarding ownership, authority, and payment application. These are not hypothetical concerns, they are concrete servicing issues that directly affect my rights and obligations as the borrower. Notice of servicing confusion and potential error. And again, this is my situation. Not everybody has this many servicers, so you just have to kind of tailor it to your situation. Over the life of this loan, servicing has transferred repeatedly, including but not limited to Countrywide, Bank of America, Green Tree, Ditech, Aqua, and PHH, NewRes, ShellPoint, Each transfer has involved new payment instructions, new statements, and also a new loan number, and new representations of authority, while prior records and correspondence were not consistently carried forward. Accordingly, I reasonably dispute whether payments have been properly credited, escrow records are accurate, and the current servicer has lawful authority to collect, modify, or enforce the loan. Request for information, ownership, and authority. Please answer each item separate and provide supporting documentation. Ownership of the loan. Identify the current owner of the loan, the entity that owns the debt and is entitled to payment. State the date on which the ownership last changed, if applicable. Provide documentary proof of ownership, including the assignment or transfer document by which ownership was obtained and the date of such transfer became effective. Holder status of the note. Identify the entity that currently holds the original promissory note. State whether the note is specially endorsed in blank, or accompanied by an allonge. Identify the custodian or location of the original note and the date it was received by the custodian. Servicing authority. Identify the specific agreement under which ShellPoint or NewRez claims authority to service this loan. State the effective date of ShellPoint's servicing authority and the entity that granted such authority. Provide a copy of the power of attorney, servicing agreement, or delegation document evidencing ShellPoint's authority. Request for information, servicing transfers and records. Provide a complete servicing transfer history, including each prior servicer, dates of transfer, what records were received from each prior servicer. Identify any records that were not received, reconstructed, or created after transfer. Identify any use of prior servicer data relied on by ShellPoint to create current records. Notice of error, payment application, and record reliability. I dispute the accuracy and reliability of my account records due to repeated servicing transfers. Specifically, please address whether any payments were placed into suspense accounts and why. Any payment histories were reconstructed or boarded from prior servicer data. Any records relied on were not created by ShellPoint or under its supervision. If ShellPoint contends there is no error, then please explain how accuracy was independently verified. That's a good one, huh? Clarification regarding modification authority if applicable. Identify whether ShellPoint has authority to offer trial loan modifications, bind the loan owner to permanent modifications. Provide documentation showing ShellPoint's authority to modify the loan if such authority is claimed. Request for response and preservation of rights. Please respond within the time frames required by RESPA and Regulation X. This request is not made to delay or avoid obligations, but to obtain clarity regarding ownership, authority, and servicing accuracy, which are prerequisites to lawful payment and enforcement. I reserve all rights and defenses. No waiver is intended. Respectfully. And then you put your name and address and you sign it. And then you send it to them certified mail. And then they have to answer all these questions. It's business days, not calendar days. And I think it's 6 days to answer, and let's see. Okay, so for the QWR, they have to acknowledge you in 5 business days, and then they have to give you a good response in 30 business days. Now, these aren't calendar days, they're business days. Keep that in mind when you're marking your calendar, guys. Okay, guys, I hope this information was helpful. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below or send me an email to my email address, which is foreclosurehelp777@gmail.com. And I hope everyone has a blessed day.